I'm Evelyn. I'm Nicole's granny.
Hello, I'm Julie, Nicole's mom.
I'm Kagan, Nicole's boyfriend.
I'm Heather, Nicole's friend.
Alright, so first I want to thank you all for taking time out of your day to come and listen to me give my speech. Without further ado, this is my mission and worldview. A couple things that I'm going to be going over today is why God placed me on earth. How has my story shaped me to use my mission in my professional life? What kind of people do I expect to encounter in my profession, and what will be my response to them? How will my responses reflect my worldview? What concerns do I imagine will influence my story and professional life? What ways do my plans for the future involve using scientific rationality, and what will make it more difficult? What sources will inform my relationship to heavenly realities, and what ways will those sources relate to the authorities that inform my professional life? And how can I relate all of this to my own story and desires to make up a unique picture of the world? Why am I here? Well, I'm here because God called me to be here. I have a purpose and I have a calling. What is my purpose and calling? I believe that my purpose here on earth is to serve others. There are plenty of ways for people to serve others. My calling is specifically the care for animals. So how do I plan to use that? I plan to serve others by taking care of their animals, treating, taking care of them, yearly exams, things like that, to serve others. So my story. Clearly, I have a love for animals if you know me well. This is a picture of my mom, who I got my love of animals from, pictured with a lot of dogs and cats. This is a picture of a cat that I rescued at my vet clinic. He's actually getting neutered that day. So I have a love for animals, and I also have a love for God. If you know me well, you also know that. And I have a calling to serve. As a young age, I didn't know what my calling was, but as I've gotten older, I realized that I like to help people, and that has been my calling in this life. So how can I connect those? Like I said earlier, I want to connect those by serving others, by helping them take care of their beloved pets. Many people think of animals just as a dog or just as a cat, but a lot of people think of them as family members, and to lose a family member is detrimental. So I wouldn't ever want anybody to have to go through that unless it's that time for the animal to pass, just as people do. So, as I'm working in a science-based field, I'm going to be meeting people with different views than I have. Specifically, I'm going to be meeting with people that don't believe in Christ or don't believe in religion at all. So how can I connect science and Christianity for those people? In high school, I struggled with that. Most of my professors were not Christians. Most of my friends were not Christians. There was a very small percentage of us at my school. And so we learned strictly science. Nothing was ever connected to the Bible. My senior year, I did get lucky to have a professor that was highly involved in a mission field in Haiti, and you could see the love of Christ pouring through her. So I asked her, how can I connect the two? She really wasn't sure herself. She just knew that she pulled things from evolution and from science and connected it some way to the Bible. And she told me to never pull things out of the Bible. Don't pull that out of the Bible and ignore the rest. Pull things out of science and connect it to that Bible verse. So how can I be a Christian figure to those who believe exclusively in science? Well, that's just how. I can pull things out of science and explain to them. God says it right here in verse blah, blah, blah. He shows us that he created this and that it wasn't just for the moment in science. So how will my responses reflect my worldview? Well, I believe that God created this earth for our use. God expects us to respect what he has given us. People, animals, the environment. We're all called to care for it. And he gave us dominion over these things. So cows, for instance, we do have dominion over them. That doesn't mean we can't eat them, because they were given to us to sustain us. but we still have to respect and care for them. So when we're raising cattle in a herd, domesticated, we need to care for them certain ways, and that involves the use of veterinary medicine. The environment, we should all take care of our environment. I'm guilty of littering on the side of the road, but that's just not one thing that we need to do to take care of our environment. There are plenty of other things. And then agriculture. God gave us the land to sustain us with. And he gave us dominion over all creatures beneath us. But they are his creation, and we should respect that because they were given to us by him. So the influence of my story and profession, some things that concern me as I go into the veterinary medicine field, that could be an influence of my story, is science. Like I said, science oftentimes is the exact opposite of what God tells us, and we have to learn how to either connect the two or decipher the two and decide what we believe. Negative people. Negative people are always going to be an influence in your life if you let them. So you have to kind of shy away from negative people and know that you are put here to do a job, and that's your calling and that's what you're supposed to do. Some challenges that I have to face would be college classes that I'm really struggling with and may have to retake or something like that. Vet school acceptances. Vet school's even more competitive to get into than med school, so that's going to be a very difficult challenge that I'm going to have to pass over. And then finding a job where I feel like I belong. I need to make sure that it is my calling to be there and I'm not just there to work. So modernism versus postmodernism. This is where scientific rationality comes in play. So modernism was a world where people used ethics and logic. These people trust in authority and their opinions in the opinions of the authority. Postmodernism is a world where people question their authority and their decisions. It's based more on emotions and thoughts rather than logic. We live in a more postmodernism world, but I myself kind of combine the two on my view of the world. I think that it's important to use ethics and logic when making decisions, but you also have to think of other emotions. And specifically in the field that I'm going into, I have to shy away from emotions and think more logically to make the right decision. So something that influences my story, sources that influence my story, that's the Bible. Here are a couple verses. They're all talking about how God gave us dominion over animals and the earth for our use, and we are to care for them, and that he, gave them to us and blessed them for us. Also, some more Bible verses, and these are about serving people. The top one says, "Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." So I want to be a light in the world. I want to shine Jesus, per se, all over people, especially in my work. So how can I relate all of this to my unique view of the world? We are supposed to serve for each other. The Bible tells us that. We should respect and care what we're given, and we should evangelize at every opportunity. So, yes, our world may not be these three things right now, but I believe that this is what we should do to make the world a better place. That concludes my presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
I do.
Yes.
As your mother, I know for a long time that you wanted to go into ministry or the missionary field. How can you bring that into your profession or take your profession into the mission field?
That's a good question. So I did a little bit of research because it was something that I struggled with and debated for a long time, how I would connect the two specifically into the mission field. And I came across a company called Christian Veterinary Fellowships, which actually send veterinarians and vet techs on long-term and short-term missions to be missionaries while still being able to work in the field they love.
Wow, that's exciting. I wish you luck and I'll be praying.
Thank you. Any more questions?
So if you had to euthanize an animal and the owner wants to know if they've made the right decision or not, how do you minister to them and let them know?
Yeah, good question. So I actually wrote an essay, and this class specifically that I'm going to speech with about how we face challenges as Christians in the veterinary medicine field. And one of those things with youth was euthanasia, because, Christians don't always agree with euthanasia or physician-assisted suicide for people. So how do Christians feel about that for animals? And I have to look at it this way. If an animal is suffering and there is nothing we can do to take their suffering away, and we're just letting them live through that, that's not caring for God's creation.